Hi friends, it's Deanna here today with some fun holiday sews. Today I'm going to be sewing up the Holly Jolly Ornaments. I'm going to be sewing up a few different versions to show you a few different ways that we can do this. We can sew them up with fabric or with felt and hand stitch them, or sew them on a sewing machine with some decorative stitches. So go grab your patterns and let's sew them up together. All right, before I get started, I wanted to show you the chaos that is my sewing room right now. I am so excited for these. I pulled out all kinds of bins that I have with little things that would be good to decorate with. I've got all kinds of ribbon in here, and I've got hot glue gun. I've got more ribbon and lace and stuff like that. I've got a bucket full of buttons, more buttons for eyes and stuff like that. Just, you know, over the years you collect all these things and you just never know when they're gonna come in handy, and then a project like this comes along and you're like, oh yes. And I've got all these squares. Somebody gave me all these already cut out squares that they were gonna make something with, and then they never did. And I've been meaning to quilt it, but you know, I haven't. So I'm like, oh, maybe I can use some of these to work with. And then I also got to thinking, I don't know if you all know this, but I actually teach art in my local school. And I am going to be taking some of these with me and doing some of the felt overlays with the students. I think that they could totally manage that. I think that they would love it, and I have so much fun decorating them and then stitching them together. I'm gonna get some of those big needles that are not so pokey, but they're middle schoolers, so I think they can handle it. We'll see. But I'm super excited because I think it's gonna be so much fun. I can't wait to go ahead and get started. So I'm gonna go look and see. The great thing about this pattern is that you can use felt, you can use fabric, you can use all kinds of things that you have around the house. All right, when it comes to cutting, if you're going to do the fabric, you will need the fabric ornament. You will need to cut out the big pieces, the main pieces, not the overlays, because you have this seam allowance here that you will mark on your piece of on your fabric to sew to help you keep that seam allowance. So what you want to do is use this main one, and you can cut it however you want to, but to get precise, I am actually going to pin it to my fabric, and my fabric is folded in half because I'm cutting two pieces to create the ornament, and I'm pinning it to the fabric. And the reason being is because I want to get a close cut. It being that these are such small pieces of fabric, and they have like the shapes, the V shapes and everything like that, you want to make sure that you get it cut just right. So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my scissors to cut this. I just feel like I have more grip when I'm actually using my scissors than when I'm using a rotary cutter or something like that, because what happens is I may go in farther than I want, and I'm going to come from the outside and come in there to the corners and just kind of go around the whole thing. You're going to have this seam allowance here, so even if it's not perfect, you can make perfect when you're sewing the seam allowance. But I just think that, you know, the straighter you can cut it, the better it will be. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut all these out. Now another option for cutting and for cutting the felt is to actually go ahead and trace your pattern piece to your paper, so that way you can have, you know, you can lift it up and be able to cut it without having to worry about the pattern piece being moving or whatever. I think this will be such a neat activity to do with your kids, or even like when they get out of school and you're like trying to find things for them to do, like crafts and projects. This will be so fun to do together. And you can teach them how to hand stitch. You don't even need to use a sewing machine for the felt ones. You can teach them on our tutorial. We have so many different stitch tutorials. So there is that. I'm going to do the same thing for the overlay, because I'm going to use an overlay for this felt one, and it just be so much fun. So it's definitely something that I think the kids would enjoy, a great kid activity. All right, we're gonna start with 3 ornaments. I've got my start, which I'm making out of fabric. Now, all of them you can make out of fabric, but I'm just giving you 3 different examples. I've got my start out of fabric, my boot with an overlay of felt, and then my gingerbread man with an overlay of felt as well. And we're gonna use 2 different stitches to close these up. So I'm gonna show you these 2 different stitches. The first thing I'm gonna do is, if you're going to add any embellishments to the overlay, I would do that first. Sew it to the overlay first, because then we'll sew the overlay to the regular piece. Now, remember, I drew on the felt to cut it out. What I was gonna show you was, so you can see the lines on here, but I drew it on the wrong side. So then you can just flip it over and now the lines are all gone. And it makes it a lot easier to see the lines, but then now they're gone. I've got some floss here to stitch my things together, some needles. All right, I'm gonna start with the star. And the first thing I'm going to do is mark my seam allowance. So you can either go ahead and mark it by using a seam gauge. You see right here that my seam allowance is there, so you can kind of put your seam gauge over and start marking it. Or what I do a lot of times is I print 2 of the pattern piece if I'm gonna do that, and then cut at the seam allowance here. All right, marking the correct seam allowance is really, really important. The reason being, because if you don't mark the correct seam allowance, you're going to end up having a misshapen ornament at the end, and you don't want to have that. So you can either place the seam allowance here and then trace inside of it, or, you know, put the star on here and trace around it, which is what I'm going to do. You don't want to have like a you don't want the gingerbread man to be like gingerbread man head to be like a square or whatever. So gauging the seam allowance, drawing it onto the paper, onto the fabric, is really important. That way you can keep your edges straight and everything. All right, so once you've got that on there, you're gonna face them right sides together, the outer and the liner, and then you're gonna sew them all the way on top of that seam allowance that you created there. The only thing you're gonna do is you're going to leave a little gap on one of the edges where you're going to insert your fluff to stuff your star. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is, if you're doing a hanging loop, I'm gonna use some ribbon to do that. I'm going to grab the ribbon, and you can go ahead and baste it on first in one of the areas, like the top area of whatever ornament you're working on. And you're gonna fit it right in there. So you can go ahead and do that. Or if you're gonna sew it on later, you can tack it on later. It really is up to you. I'm just gonna place it on here now and pin it. And then when I go to my sew machine, make sure that I start like right there and baste it on so it doesn't fall off. And then we're gonna go sew all the way around, leaving a little gap where we're gonna turn it and stuff it. So I'm gonna put that aside. And like I said earlier, if you're doing an overlay, I would start working on your overlay first. So that way, when you sew it onto your second piece, your overlay is already done. So I've got my boot and I've got my fluff overlay here. I'm gonna go, you know what, I'm gonna sew this on my sewing machine. You can sew it on your sewing machine with a straight stitch all the way around, attaching it to, and then when you attach it here, you could attach it in your sewing machine as well and attach it all the way around, leaving a gap to stuff it. So that's what I'm gonna do for this one. So I'm gonna do this one on my sewing machine. I'm gonna clip it here so that I can go all the way around with a straight stitch. And then I'm gonna go around the whole thing, stitching it. And then for my gingerbread man, I'm gonna start by decorating him, and I'm gonna hand stitch Mr. Gingerbread Man. I got these cute little buttons, just tiny little buttons for his eyes. I've got some, I know that they're supposed to be gumdrops, but I've got, you know what? I also got these little hearts, so maybe I'll do these little hearts. So they'll be like hard gumdrops for his buttons. This is the part that's really super fun, because you can, I'm doing these buttons or whatever, but you can really do hot glue or fabric glue or whatever, and just like glue little jewels or let me see. I wonder if these are, I was wondering if these are adhesible, but they're not. So anyway, you can do little jewels, and you can use these too for like your tree, decorating your tree and all stuff like that. That's super fun. You can put googly eyes on him if you wanted to. I do have some googly eyes, but I think I was just going for the regular, for the just a button look. And then I was gonna use some floss to create a mouth, so I'm gonna do that. And then I have some of this rickrack that I'm going to put on his legs to create that gingerbread look. And you can, again, you can hot glue this on. You can glue it with fabric glue, however you want to do it. I'm going to do it, I think I'm just going to stitch everything on because it's just easy to hand stitch it on. All right, I want to start by marking where I'm going to place these. I don't know if I'm going to end up wanting to add a scarf or not. Let me look and see if I have anything to add a scarf on here with. I think maybe adding a little bow that matches the rickrack, but you know, obviously it doesn't need to be this long. Oh yeah, that will be cute. I'm smiling. Yeah, I think that's what we're going with. Ah! Okay, so I'm going to start marking where everything is gonna go, and then we'll sew it on. I'm hand stitching the eyes with white thread because I want the eyes to have a little bit of white in there, like you know, like our eyes do. All right, there's his eyes. All right, now I think I'm gonna try to go ahead and do the mouth next, because I think the mouth is gonna be hard to do when I attach everything else because it'll be in the way. So I'm just gonna draw a little mouth, how I want his mouth to look. And I'm using embroidery floss. I'm just gonna use 2 strands. Actually, let me use 3 strands. All right, for his mouth, I'm just going to use a running stitch. I'm gonna start here at the corner of the mouth. And usually we do a knot here at the back, so it's not gonna come straight through. Then I'm gonna go kind of down however long you want your stitch away from it. And then I'm gonna come back from the back right next to that stitch, right below it. And pull back out, and then go again the same length. I don't know if that's gonna be too thin. Maybe I should have used all the strands. It'll be a very thin looking mouth. Then I come right behind it, like almost underneath it, and go in and go back out, and then come right back out again in the next one. What do we think? Do we need to do it thicker, or is that a good smile? I might go back and do another stitch here at the beginning to make it a little bit of a wider smile. All right, I think that looks great. Now I'm gonna tie this off in the back. Okay, I'm gonna save this floss to sew my boot closed. All right, so now we've got his mouth, his eyes, and now we just gotta attach the rest of the stuff. Is this gingerbread man not going to be adorable or what? I'm wondering if I want to stitch these on, or if I want to glue them on, or what do we want to do? I think I'm going to continue stitching. There's just something soothing to me about sewing things on, right? I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it's just kind of soothing. But I am going to make my thread longer because I need more thread. Oh my goodness, this is going to be so cute. I'm going to continue to sew this on. And you, I hope you are working on your ornaments with me and sewing them up with me, because this is too much fun. You know what? I'll hot glue these at the end. We're gonna sew him up together, and then I'll hot glue the rake rack at the end. That way I don't have any stitch lines on the rake rack. All right, now I'm going to sew my gingerbread man together, my overlay and my main piece. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to sew up with some embroidery floss, and I'm going to stitch it all the way around. You could do this with your sewing machine if you wanted to go to your sewing machine and just sew it up, but you can look on our tutorial for this pattern, and in that tutorial we have all kinds of different stitches that you can use to stitch this up, some kind of decorative stitches and stuff like that. I'm gonna do like a regular stitch here on the side just because I think it looks cute. I did a knot at the end of my floss, and I'm going in. I go in a little bit farther in, like into my overlay, and then I come over outside of my overlay, and there's one stitch, and I'm just going to go right up over however much width you want to give it, and then coming right out. And I'm going to try to keep my stitches pretty even, but I think that that's going to give it like a really cute, like sewn together look, which is what I'm going for. So I'm going to go all the way around. Oh, that's looking so cute. I'm gonna continue to do that and finish all the way up. Then we'll come back and attach our other little things by hot gluing them on. Now I'm gonna go on and go to my sewing machine and finish up these other two. I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna do that. All right, I'm going to be attempting to use some of some different floss that is shimmery. It's got a little bit of shimmer. I don't know if you'll be able to tell unless you're close up. But that's what I'm attempting to use to sew this up, this boot, so it has a little bit of fun twist to it. Okay, so for the adding the little fluff around it, I'm just gonna do a regular straight stitch and go all the way around. All right, now how cute would it be to embroider your kid's name right on there? That would be adorable, but I'm not going to be doing that today because I don't have my embroidery machine and I didn't plan on it. Now for the overlay, you can have the boot stick out like I said, or you know what, I'm gonna cut another shape just the same amount, or I can trim it later. Actually, let's just do it like this because I want to see, I have a decorative stitch here that I want to use. We're gonna go with, it's 54 on my sewing machine, and I'm going to do the top white, but then the rest I'm gonna change to a red thread. And you know what, I'm gonna pin this because I don't want it moving around and it being all shifty. I may actually just sew around these edges, then I'll add a little bit of stuffing through the top and leave a little gap that I could add like a little candy cane or something in there, like a little surprise. I think that would be super cute. So you know what, I'm gonna just do a regular straight stitch here at the top to close this gap up, kind of like where I sew the boot. And I may just leave it. I don't know if I want to do something fancy and fun. You know what, let's just do that decorative stitch. I'm going to change it. Should I change it to red or leave it? I'm gonna leave it. Let's see what it does. Oh my goodness, look at that. How cute. I did lessen my tension for it to, at first it started really tight, and then I lessened my tension and I keep going because it's so thick, and it did such a good job. Okay, one more thing. We're going to add a hanging loop here in the back. So I'm grabbing some ribbon, and you can place it anywhere you want. Or you can hand stitch it too if you want to. Just gonna place it right back here and just do a tacking stitch. I'm gonna do it under the white of the boot because I have that white thread still on there. But if you're not lazy like me, you can change your thread. You can even hand stitch it actually. So cute. All right, moving on to the star of the show. Again, remember, we're gonna leave a little gap somewhere. So I'm gonna start right here so I can leave a little gap. And I'm gonna be very careful. Actually, I'm gonna change my thread to the regular white thread. I don't need the fancy thread anymore. I'm gonna be really careful that I stay with my seam allowance on that I drew on. As I'm going around, I'm kind of lifting my foot up to turn slowly. Here at the corner, I get to that point, lift up my foot, and then I turn sharp on that corner. But around the edges, because it's a curved edge, I'm just slowly turning. Leave your needle down though, as you slowly take that turn. Okay, and then remember that you're leaving that gap, so don't close the gap. All right, I love how this boot turned out. If I want to trim a little bit of the excess here to create a smaller seam allowance, you can do that. I'm just kind of trimming a little bit of the top. Oh, I'm really thinking this boot would be super adorable, not boot, stocking with the kid's name on it. And see how I left that gap here? I'm gonna stuff a little bit of fluff on it and it'll be an ornament. But you can also stick like a candy cane or like a little toy or like a little something here on every day, like different Christmas, like candy or something for your kids to find on the tree. How magical would that be? This is adorable. So this one's done. We're gonna put it aside. I'm obsessed with it. Gingerbread man, I have to finish him. I have not. Let's put him aside. And then the star, what we're going to do is we want to trim all the way these edges, these corners, I'm sorry, all the way to where I sewed up the thread, because we want to make sure that it turns really nicely. And then also here on the curves, you might want to like trim seam allowance, or if you have pinking shears, or just like clip little triangles so it curves nicely. I'm just trimming some of the seam allowance. All right, now we're gonna go where I left that gap, which right here, and we're gonna turn it right side out. I'm gonna use a little tool to poke out my corners. Before I move on to stuff it, I'm going to give it a good steam and fold here at that gap I left. I'm gonna fold my seam allowance into the inside because we're gonna top stitch that closed. Make sure to push out all your little corners so they look nice and rounded like they're supposed to be. If you have like a little bit of puckering here, you need to turn it back and clip close to the seam allowance, and then that will take care of that. Oh, how cute is that star? Another thing that you can embroider, draw a little face, so many things you can do to this star as well. Okay, I found my fluff. I was looking for it, I couldn't find it. I thought, no, I know I have some. And then we're gonna stuff some fluff in here as much as you want to make this as fluffy as you want it to be. Now there are many ways you can close this gap right here, but one of the ways that I like to do it, that I call it the simple, easy way, is to grab some double-sided hold hem tape, and I put it right in that gap. Now I'm gonna have to add a little bit of extra fluff for this area here. What I'll do is I'll move some of the fluff over once I close that gap. And I'm going to, you can kind of touch it for a temporary hold, but then you can use heat for a permanent hold. And so you can do it that way, or you can hand stitch it. That's another way to close it. Hand stitching it there will be good, but that's it. Move that fabric, that fluff all the way down so it goes everywhere. Even it out, and there's my star. Now you can add any kind of decorations to the star that you want to add. If you wanted to add some like ribbon, some hot glue some ribbon going around it, or anything like that, or like wrapping like a, almost like a Christmas tree. That would be kind of cute. And then you can hot glue it on. But I think I'm just gonna leave it simple. Next time, or you know what you could do too? I could cut out an overlay, a star overlay of any other fabric that I wanted. This is just simple in here. And either the big overlay or the little overlay. I'm gonna tell you what I'm thinking with this. Hold on, let me cut this out. I'm gonna tell you what I'm thinking with this. I could embroider my kid's name on here or something and add that little overlay to my star. That would be super cute. But again, I don't have an embroidery machine right now, and I can hand embroider sometimes, but not all the time. But look at how cute that is too. If you just add like a little decorative little thing on the middle, that looks really cute. So we're done with my star and my boot. I love how they turned out. We got a mess on my table, but that's okay because that's what creativeness is all about. And now I just got to go ahead and finish my gingerbread man. I'm going to go ahead and stitch it all the way around. Come back and show you hot glue this on. Comment below and let me know what you think. Should I add a little bow? I'm going to be adding some, I don't know if I'm going to add gold or like a gold hanging loop here, or maybe a red to match his mouth, or maybe a pink to match all the pink on it. We'll see. But comment below and let me know what you think I should do. Should I add a little bow here, or should I leave it as is? I think it's super adorable. Even without the bow, it looks so cute. Let me finish up and come back and show you all. And yeah. All right, we're almost done. So I'm setting aside my needle right here. I've got my star finished, my boot is finished. Now remember, on this one, I just did the overlay and sewed it to the first, to one of the mains. But on this one, we went ahead and did the overlay. I just need to hot glue this. So let me hot glue it real quick. I heated up my mini hot glue gun. All right, I usually always end up making a mess with my hot glue, so this is not too bad. I didn't make that much of a mess. That's why I always rather just stitch. Okay, and so we've got our overlay to our main. Now I'm gonna grab my other piece. This is my back piece, which is the main, but it's two main pieces, and I'm gonna attach it to my overlay. There's different ways to attach this together. You can do just like a slip stitch along the side. You can do the same kind of stitch here along the edge. You can sew it on your sewing machine and just go around the whole edge. Even like a zigzag stitch all the way around the outer edge with your sewing machine would work. Now remember, you're gonna have to leave a gap so that you can insert the stuffing so you can fluff out. So I'm gonna just pin him in different areas so it doesn't wobble away from me. And as you can tell, I have a little bit of edging that shows in the back. I don't mind that, but that's because it is, you know, you're cutting two pieces, so I, you know, got a little bit off, but you can always trim that around if you don't want to see all that. So I'm going to go ahead and start stitching. All right, so to sew them together, I will either do a running stitch or a split stitch. A split stitch is you go ahead and start from the back, and you're basically going to do like a running stitch where you do your next stitch over at the bottom. But then when you come back over and do the next stitch, however long you want that stitch to be, instead of it being like aside from it, you go like in between the strands of the last one you created. So then it's kind of latched on together. So then I'm going to go again farther up ahead and then in between those strands of the last one. Okay, and I'm going to go like that all the way around. So it kind of has like an effect of like you drew a line right there. I'm going all the way around, leaving that gap where I'm going to insert my stuffing. And then I also have to stitch whatever the hanging however you're gonna hang it, I gotta stitch that on. And then we'll be all done with these ornaments. Now, I probably will take some of the other ones over to my class, like I said, and I love all this hand stitching. So this is probably my favorite, this gingerbread man, because I love doing all the hand stitching on the felt. It's so much fun. So like making it wise, this is probably my favorite, but I also love that how the stocking turned out with the really fun stitching on my sewing machine. That was really fun too. And the star was super easy and quick. So they all have their you know, all the different ways of making these have their like my favorite reasons why I like them that way. Now obviously you can make every single one of these whatever ways you want to, like the stuffing and whatever, however you want to make it, would obviously be like if you want to do the gingerbread man with fabric and just sew it like I sewed the star, you can do it that way. This is not specific for each thing. That's just how I chose to make them. All right, I've got my gap here. I'm going to insert some of this fluff. All right, once it's stuffed, we're gonna close this gap up. All right, now I have a couple questions. I know I asked you earlier, so I want you to respond and let me know in the comments below. Should I add like a little bow here and the corner to make it kind of cute like this? Kind of looks like a little bit of hair, or like a little red bow, or what should I add to it? Or should I leave it without the bow? I kind of like it without the bow as well. And then all I got to do is add a little hanging loop. And if you want to go back and trim some of this back, the felt that was in the back, I kind of like it, but I don't like the fact that there's more on one space than the other. I'm trimming a little bit of this seam allowance here to kind of get rid of some of this extra green that came poking out the back. Maybe I should have gotten the same color brown, but oh well. I kind of wanted something a little bit different for the back. All right, so now I'm just gonna hand stitch this loop here and we'll be done. You know what? I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna use this floss and I'm gonna create a hanging loop. All right, we are done with our ornaments. I only did these 3 versions here, but I'm going to be doing the tree and everything next. Now comment below and tell me, first of all, should I add something to it? Second of all, which one is your favorite version? The Velcro with the backing, the overlay with the boot with the decorative stitches, or the woven with the overlay? Which one are you going to try first? I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Comment, like, share, subscribe. Go grab your patterns, sew them with me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.